Now that the interior isn't purple, we can start cleaning up this mess of an engine bay. You can see why the engine came with the cover over the intake manifold, simply to cover up how ugly the intake manifold really is. To remedy that, we're going to take off all the fins, move the PCV and FPR vacuum ports to the back of the intake while leaving the MAP. In the end, it should look like this. First thing first, take it all apart. I just looked up how to change the intake manifold gasket and followed along. With my car being a swap, there were some random fuel lines to track down, but other than that, everything just pops off. Underneath, the intake was pretty grimy, so I decided it'd be a good idea to change a couple gaskets while we're in there. To clean up the heads, I scraped off the big chunks of grime, vacuumed around, and used some cleaners. Some of the pieces were pretty rusty, so later on we're going to clean them with the sandblasting cabinet while the paint is drying. The intake manifold was screwed down to a board so it wouldn't jump all over when I used the Sawzall. The Sawzall was a tad sketchy at times, but it really is the fastest and easiest way to cut off all the fins. You want to make sure to keep the vacuum ports you plan to relocate in good shape and save all the pieces you cut off to fill the holes. When filling the holes, I tried to keep the piece I was melting in completely flush. I did this to make sure there weren't any other holes that popped up when it came time to sand it down. To help with this, I put a screw in my filler piece so I could hold it in place while I tacked it on. I used a small torch and a screwdriver to melt the plastic, but it would have been far more efficient and easier to use a soldering iron. Unfortunately, I couldn't find one at the time and was anxious to keep going with the build. I made sure to use a cheap screwdriver as I felt it could mess with the temper of it. I waited until it was noticeably red from the heat, and then quickly brought it over to melt the scrap pieces onto the intake. Two holes were drilled in the back for the PCV and FPR ports, although I messed up a bit. Another time, I'd have put them both on the left side rather than on the bottom. Because I put them on the bottom, when it came time to install, there were fitment issues and we had to bang out the firewall a bit. Again, I was impatient in tacking them on with the screwdriver and left some air leaks I didn't notice until much later. With everything on, I gave it a quick file and sand before cleaning off the dirt, dust, and grime so it would be easier for the Bondo to stick. Just seeing it dark and shiny from the alcohol gave me some faith that it'd turn out alright. I sprayed it off with some water and then tried to help it dry by using a heat gun so I could have the Bondo work done before I went to bed. This is my first time ever using Bondo or anything of the sort. I don't claim to be a pro or even remotely good at it. I've been told your mix should match the color of the putty applicator. I filed away the excess and sanded it down. I could see some imperfections but decided to call it a night as it was super late at this point. For the paint, I used the same color as the interior, a color which I'm still not crazy over, mainly as it shows up so light on this camera. With the intake painted, you could see my lack of experience in areas, as the sins of the Bondo application were highlighted. While the paint dried, I used a sandblasting cabinet to clean up some of the rusty pieces. Again, a first for me. I couldn't believe how well everything came out. Another thing I tackled while the paint was drying was some of the injector connectors. One was broken and zip tied in place. I just didn't trust it, so I ordered a set off eBay. I cut and stripped the wires, then crimped on a connector. I want to get a cleaner way of wrapping it up rather than cheap electric tape. Eventually I want to clean up this whole area of the engine as well. I had a couple friends over who helped paint the parts that were prone to rust and aid with the install. I snapped the new gasket on the intake as well as the cleaned up fuel rails. At this point, I was really happy with how everything was looking. We managed to squeeze it all in, but it was super tight and one of the vacuum ports broke off. So we took it out, whipped out the screwdriver, and fixed it up so we could start again. While it doesn't sound too loud with the cell phone audio, it was enough to make the cameraman jump. After After the startup, I checked for issues and found just about every leak possible: an air leak on the back, a fuel leak from the fuel rail, and a coolant leak from below the throttle body. I read online that you need to oil up these rings to stop the fuel rail from leaking, so I did that and it worked no problem. With that all done, the engine still isn't pretty, but I think this mod was a step in the right direction. Unfortunately, after these 2 steps forward, we took 1 step back after a friend crashed the car. But at least that gives me content for another video. Next, we'll be telling that story and trying my hand at fiberglass bodywork. Subscribe to see more of the build. I'm going to try and get some more videos up with other cars as well soon. Thanks for watching.